Let me make sure there's nobody else coming in. All right, almost there. Okay, we're good. And I can hide that. Okay, fantastic. Oh, one more person. All right, this is so cool. All right. Okay, I'm just going to mute. Thank you for joining, whoever is listed as iPhone. I'm just going to mute you just so we have everyone muted. Okay, fantastic. All right, I know it is 9 a.m. Pacific time on a Saturday morning, and I can't, and so your time is valuable. I just want to first off say, how totally cool is it that a whole bunch of strangers, because I've only ever talked to one other person here, has decided to meet at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. It's pretty awesome, pretty awesome. So I'm going to, let me do one other thing. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, all right, enough technical stuff. I'll be keeping an eye and making sure nobody else comes in. But let me just first off tell you that I don't really have an agenda. This is not a slick presentation. This is just like, I recognize that there was so much interest in this topic that it would be, you know, an important thing to discuss. So I'm just going to tell you what I've done and pitfalls, and then take questions. One person who couldn't be here live, and for anyone who's not here live, I'll say, you can listen to this. I'll put whatever links or whatever information we talk about in the recording, like in the links afterwards. You're not going to miss any written information if I even write anything. Okay. So my name's Elizabeth. I am Elizabeth Hughes. I'm a board certified dermatologist, and I practiced conventional dermatology until the end of 2020. And I've transitioned entirely into, let me just kind of mute. Entirely into the not directly medical practice world as of 2021. I've had my coaching practice since 2015. I actually went back and looked. That's when I formed my LLC and did it part-time to first very part-time and then a little less part-time. And now it is full-ish time. I actually fill my time with several other things. I'm also an inventor, a writer, and I am a medical director for and do some pharmaceutical company consulting. So there's a lot of different ways that I spend my time, but I really will say that and that's because I've realized that I've got ADHD in a way of like wanting to do things, not in terms of getting things done, but that I get bored if I'm not doing everything. So I am going to talk specifically about my coaching business, and people have asked some really specific questions. And so feel free to use the chat. I'm going to pull up the chat, so I will keep an eye on it right now, and so I can see. Feel free to use your chat and or unmute yourself if you've got a question, because we've got a small group of people here, and so that's totally awesome. All right, so questions came up around training. Like, what do you need to get trained for being, let's say, coach? So there are oodles of different types of training programs. And I know that there's like a lifestyle medicine certification that you can get trained in. There are any number of nutritional based training. I actually got my coaching through something called the Whole Health Medicine Institute, which was at the time aimed at physicians who wanted to bring other things into their coaching practice, more of a mental emotional component. I do not know if they're still running it in the same way they did, but when I did it, it was very definitely for physicians. They had a few pharmacists, which was really super interesting. Pharmacists are really burned out too, and a few people who were like therapists, but most of us were MDs there. and a few nurses as well. Actually, I have a couple of friends who were nurses, but it was mostly medical professionals. But there are tons and tons of different ways to get your training. Oh, somebody else is here. Let me just let someone else in. I'm just gonna, okay, everybody's here. All right. There are tons and tons of different ways to get training in this. And I think I commented on the post that started all of this about that actually the training isn't as important as we put as much weight as we put on it. That how you get trained, I mean, it's weird because it's the opposite of what we learn in medicine, like the training is everything and got to get, through residency. Your training is only as good as what you put into practice. And that's really what I found, is that kind of like residency, it was a lot more on the job practice, that the training could be good as a framework, but you had to do some work on and, in person. And so that it didn't really, so your training is, the training is sort of a wild card. I mean, it really is a wild card. And I know people who do, there are plenty of people doing coaching in the health arena who do it just with their MD, just with their MD. So if, and no other formalized training. The important thing is, and this is totally and completely different than, let's say, choosing a residency, is the training that you're going to do should really speak to you, actually, because it's, you are going to get something out of this. And if you are going and looking at, okay, I need this training, but I don't really, it doesn't speak to me, then it's probably not the right thing to do. And I will tell you, I've, decided not to get certain types of training because I was like, I don't need that anymore. So remember that your training is not necessarily 100% of what's going to make you a successful coach. Oh, where did I do my training? Yes. Okay. So something called, I will type this out for everyone, and I'm going to have to remember to put this in the comments. Okay. The Whole Health Medicine Institute, Whole Health Medicine Institute. I am not 100%. And the person, she was Dr. Lissa Rankin. So Lissa Rankin is an OBGYN who wrote a book called Mind Over Medicine, where she went into the mindset, the change of how you can change your health via beliefs. And that's her whole book. And she has, best-selling book, PBS special, et cetera, et cetera. And I ran across her in my reading and I was like, oh, this really speaks to me. And so this is what I'm talking about. Whereas, and because my way of coaching, I don't prescribe medicine. Well, I mean, I don't prescribe medicines, but I don't talk about supplements. I don't talk about diets. I don't talk about exercise. I talk about the beliefs of what's keeping you stuck underneath that. And why, if you should exercise, why are you not? What is the belief that's way, way down underneath? And that's my zone of genius, is to find those sticking points that people have, because people will get lots and lots of good advice and not be able to put it into action. So that's and I knew that going in, that's what spoke to me. And so this approach spoke to me quite a bit. And I've gone on and I'll tell you about other training that I've gotten. But so then when I say you've got to have something that speaks to you. So if you are a person who is, very, very interested in diet, you would hate that training course. You would hate it. And there's no right or wrong about either of these. Go get a diet, whole food based training for yourself, because this is a little bit, I don't want to call it the Wild West, but I'll call it that there's so much out there, and to some extent you need to figure out what sparks you to start off with, and then go in that direction, because there's tons of others. I have another physician coach friend who is very, very concerned about equity and justice, and works for this, has gotten a training through basically compassionate leadership. That's his thing. I think it's fabulous, and I think it's all fabulous, but it's because that's what speaks to him about his way of working with people in the world. So I am sure. All right, so this is going to reflect my dislike of the American Board of Medical Specialties, the ABMS. They are very definitely going to cash in on making sure that everybody has a certain certification. And so the lots and lots of these training programs are, 2-3 years of something that is it kind of be quite expensive. And there is a degree of, money making behind that. And it's not it's not a bad thing. If you are going to use, if it really sparks interest for you, if you are excited about it, go for it. Absolutely. But don't think that you have to have one of these certifications, or that you have to choose the right one, because there is no one right one. And here's the second thing I was going to do, and I was going to talk about the other things I've done. When we do medicine, we think we're done with like residency and we're cooked. Like we're done. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a dermatologist and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Or I'm going to be a radiologist. I'm going to be in urgent care, whatever it is. With coaching, you are not cooked. And you actually, all of the best and most successful people I know have never, ever figured that they were completely cooked and done when they finished whatever training they were doing. And not to say that you're going to go down a rabbit hole of searching for more certification. That's like staying in grad school forever or doing 1,000 fellowships. That's not what I'm talking about. But you are going to fine tune and tweak and figure out what it is that really, where your zone of genius is along the way. And I'll talk about that in a second when we talk about marketing. Okay. Any other questions right now? Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat. All right, I'm not seeing anything come through for a second. So I'll tell you what else I've done. In addition to getting this, sort of physician-based coaching certification from the Whole Health Medicine Institute, I'm actually also a yoga instructor. I did a, long 9-month yoga intensive. And I did, it contained as part of it, information about Ayurveda. I am not, and here's another thing, is I actually for a little while thought that I was going to want to go into Ayurvedic medicine. And it's funny how the universe worked. The program that I was going to do ran into a glitch and got itself canceled. And I think I've actually saved myself 2 years and like $40,000, because it actually would have been a place I didn't actually want to go. So I think like it was a fortunate coincidence that it wasn't it. But my yoga training did have a large component of Ayurvedic or the Indian system of the traditional Indian system of medicine, which was really helpful, a very different way of looking at the body. And again, I chose my yoga certification because I wanted that. I did not want a yoga certification that was just a bunch of 20-year-olds trying to turn themselves into pretzels and stand on one finger. That wasn't of interest to me. But that's another certification that I got. And that's important because I'll talk about malpractice in a second. The other thing is I've started to work on different belief changing modalities. There are lots of them out there, and trauma transformation, things that aren't really in the psychiatric or psychological literature, things like EMDR, eye movement desensitization, things like EFT or emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. I do a couple of these sort of a little bit more fringe belief changing and trauma resolving medicine techniques, or energy medicine techniques. And this is where having the certification helped me get my my malpractice insurance. So I get and I'll type this out right now, energy medicine professional association. Okay. So the Energy Medicine Professional Association does provide, it's run by psychologists who do some of these a little bit less conventional inside the box, or they do a little bit more the outside the box energy medicine techniques like EMDR or EFT or things like that. And this is where the malpractice insurance comes in, because I actually have these certifications. I was introduced to the Energy Medicine Professional Association because they provide liability insurance for yoga instructors. And I discovered that they provided things for other of these energy medicine modalities, including coaching. I actually went with them for my malpractice insurance. It's a large association, very stable, very steady. They provide some absolutely great continuing education. I took the best ethics course I've ever taken through them, like the professional ethics done by a woman who was a psychologist and a lawyer and practiced EFT. And I was like, this is an amazing class. And it was great. So you will find you do not need to involve your conventional malpractice insurance at all. In fact, I now, because I'm not practicing medicine, do not have any conventional malpractice insurance. That said, I'm very, very careful not to diagnose anything, not to treat anything in the sense of adjust medications or add medications. I don't really want to review. I do not specifically order labs. If people bring me a laboratory report, I might look at it, but I don't usually comment on it. People are very, interested in having me comment on numbers. And for me, the way I work, the numbers don't matter as much. So there is a real separation between what I do and what medicine looks like, conventional medicine. And the one time that I have actually had a client who was also a dermatology patient. She was a woman with severe eczema all over, and I could tell that there were a lot of subconscious blocks around things. It's like, let's work together on this. It was a disaster. I will say it was a disaster. It was very hard to separate where my medical treatment ended and the coaching relationship began. This could be very, very different if you're going to draw people from your own practice, but you will need to have some really, really good boundaries about what you're doing. Then again, you'll probably have to have dual insurance, because from a medical malpractice standpoint, if you are recommending a bunch of, let's say you're recommending some supplements or something that isn't, or a diet that isn't strictly speaking mainstream, if that's what you want to do, you're going to need a different set of insurance to cover that, because from a medical malpractice standpoint, they're like, well, this, there's no evidence, is, not evidence-based, even though you might actually know that it works for you. So look around for, and if you do choose to get a training of some sort, they will very frequently have an arrangement with a group like the Energy Medicine Professional Association, which is how I found them, through the Yoga Alliance. They have guess what? We have a partnership with them. You can, get your malpractice here, or get your insurance here. Yes. Questions? Comments? Something I'm not hitting yet? All right. I'm not seeing anything for a moment. So I've seen a bunch of questions, and one person actually who couldn't be here live, but she sent a bunch of really good questions, including setting up, like, what do you do to set your business up legally? And the person who sent the question is a radiologist and already has an S Corp for radiology, for her teleradiology practice. And she wondered if she could do coaching under the teleradiology license. And I think the answer is going to be, I know. So to speak. I mean, that would be my guess. So I actually have separate financial, or I want to say legal entities, and separate financial entities for the various different things I do. So my coaching business is a single owner LLC right now. I can't remember, it's a single owner. I can't remember what they say, but that's what it is. It's a one-person LLC. I don't employ anyone who works for me. I just pay as, they're short-term contractors, but I don't employ anyone right now for me or pay for anything over the long term. And so it's legally unbelievably simple, at least here in Washington State. So I'm in Seattle. At least here in Washington State, it took me 20 minutes to set up my LLC, and I did not have a lawyer. I just went on to the state website, registered my LLC, figured out what business category I was going to be in. And when I started, I said, oh, I'm going to be a yoga instructor, even though that was the closest that I had to it 5 years ago, and just filled out the paperwork, and bammo, I got my, my UBI, I can't remember what that is, but I got my little business number for the state of Washington. And once I had that and sort of my quote unquote incorporation papers, I was able to go to the IRS and get my EIN, which is an employer identifying number. It's a social security number for a company. And I had my EIN that got mailed to me, and then bam, oh, there I am. I had, I was able to, with that paperwork, able to go and open a business bank account, very easy. Just, pop some money in there, and that was for that. The state of Washington obviously requires me to file an annual tax return and renew that license yearly. It's very easy. I do all of this myself. And some of that might be that my dad was an accountant, and so I grew up kind of helping him with the books a little bit, like exciting Saturday afternoon activity in the Hughes house, well, the Williams household, that's maiden name's Williams, but that's what I used to do. So I'm not really scared with these numbers, and I was familiar with it. The state of, the city of Seattle I am in Seattle and my business is in Seattle. They also have a business license that's required, but really that's it. You can do this on your own. It can take, oh, is it an S Corp? No, so I have an LLC. I have a single person LLC. I don't have an S Corp. I am in the process of setting something up for my new skincare product company, which is still in development. I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do. I have that developing on the back burner, and that might turn into an S Corp because that might turn into something bigger. But for right now, my coaching business is an LLC. And my taxes are really easy because if you have a single person LLC, you can just do it with your regular taxes. You can get TurboTax, or if you have an accountant, to just do it all. There's one tax return. Whereas if you have an S Corp, you have to have a business tax return too. Yes, some tax deduction benefits. Let me get to that. I will answer that in a second. So people ask about a lawyer. Did I have a lawyer to set all of this up? No. I did all of this on my own. I actually had a friend just advise me. He'd set up a bunch of different companies, and that's what he does. And I'm like, Will, what do you do? And he just kind of talked me through it, and I just went out and did it. So I did not have a lawyer. I did have a lawyer to look over my consent forms. Everyone who works with me signs a consent form, and I found some boilerplate language, and put that all together, and then gave it to a lawyer and said, "Will you review this? You know, like what do I need to add? What is different?" And that was the extent of my lawyer activity for my coaching business. I've got some trademark folks working on the skincare, but that's a totally different thing. And here's the great thing: unlike in medicine, you can always do it. Go back. You can do it and want to change it. Like if you set it up as an LLC and now you want to transition to an S Corp or a B Corp or something else, you can do all of that afterwards. You don't have to be right the first time. I mean, it's a little bit freeing. It's totally different than, making a decision on a procedure or a diagnosis or something like that and not getting it right. There's a lot of leeway. And there are people out there who help you if you need some help. So I guess what I'd love to say is, if you're considering, and some of these technical things seem to be overwhelming, don't let the technical stuff be overwhelming to you, because it can literally be super duper simple. And you doesn't require nearly as much perfection to start with as you need. And you will grow, you will expand, you will at some point need or desire to have some help with it, and the help comes in. And whatever you do, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be awesome. Let me go back for one other insurance issue. So I run my business. Oh yes, I'm going to talk about how did I find clients. Yes, I'm definitely going to talk about marketing in a second. And I'll talk about my coaching model, which is really different from everything else. But that's another thing. Good questions. Thank you. I love it. So where was I? Oh, when I had a physical office, I no longer has a physical office. I went entirely online in 2019. So I was all prepared for the pandemic. But when I had a physical office, I also had some insurance, which was required by the people I was renting my space, my office from, that basically covered, tripping hazards. If somebody tripped and fell, nobody would get sued. So I did have something like that. And you can get that, through, there are various business, things like Farmers Insurance will give insurance to small businesses. It wasn't particularly expensive or difficult. It covered if there was damage to the equipment that I had in my office, which there really wasn't. Unlike a medical office where there's lots of equipment and things can be expensive, even just an exam table can be expensive. This was just a small office, and but it covered that, and it covered if somebody had an accident in the office and liability for that. So. Okay. All right, let me take a look here. How did I find my clients? What are the link of my sessions? How many sessions and pricing? Okay. Can consent be incorporated in terms of use? And do you need to trademark your coaching business? So my coaching business is not trademarked, but but go get your website. Like, it's super duper, like, go on GoDaddy. You're not familiar with GoDaddy, and go get your website now. Go get your name or whatever else you want. If you're even thinking about this, go get your website, because once you've established that, it means that somebody else can't take it. And for me, my name, Elizabeth Hughes, there's oodles of us out there. And so I ended up making my website Elizabeth Hughes MD, because Elizabeth Hughes was bought. And then I bought Elizabeth Hughes from the person that she just abandoned the URL, and I'm like, oh, that one's mine too. So I own both of them now. But if you want to brand under your name, you can, or if you want to brand under a specific idea, go get your website. And if it's an easy thing, GoDaddy, you can get it for like $12 for your first year. Does professional liability cover social media and YouTube? That's a really good question. I don't know if it covers YouTube, but I don't. So my YouTube information is not medically specific. I do more education there, and people can take the education as they want. So I don't even consider or think about that. Like, my method of working and marketing is very much not on a therapeutic end of things. I don't offer a lot of, do this, recommend this in my social media. Okay, let me take a look here. So, here, can consent be incorporated in terms of use? I'm not 100. Can you unmute yourself and answer? Tell me a little bit what you mean. I think the answer is yes. You could have yeah. Tell me about that.
Yes, absolutely. So, like, I use Teachable. Mm-hmm. So in Teachable, when you do coaching, like when they like make the payment, they click on yes, I read and agree on terms of use and privacy policy.
Yes.
So can I put some information in the terms of use document about the consent?
So I got to tell you, so since I don't use Teachable, I know what you mean. You'd have to look at it and make sure that the terms of use don't specifically relate to Teachable. Like, Teachable will not, infect your computer with something, or is it a separate coaching thing?
So they have both.
Oh,
so you have to agree on both.
I think that that's totally fine, because I'm going to type out the coaching platform I use. Mm-hmm. Let me type that out. Okay, I'll talk about Coach Accountable in a second. So I do believe that you could have a consent in there with the terms of use for what you're doing, for what you're doing. Yes. So I could, and do it, and then have a lawyer run by. Like, that's what I did. It's like, just do it first, figure out what boilerplate, figure out what you want to put in it, and then hire a lawyer for an hour to review your documents, right away, and just, or, do it and then have them figure it out, so to speak. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. So do you need to, oh, so the trademark your coaching business, I don't, so let me go back to that. I do not have my coaching business trademarked. If you had a specific process, if you had I've just seen Grace's name right here. So if you had like Graceful Transformation Coaching or Graceful Transformation Process, you might want to copyright a process, but I don't think you need to copyright your coaching business unless you felt like your coaching business name was, remarkably difficult, like somebody else might encroach on it. So I'm not trademarked for that. I did consider getting a trademark on a specific process that I did, and I decided not to do that. I decided not to walk around with a process. Does that make sense? And trademarking is, again, trademarking is relatively easy. Doesn't require, it's not patenting. Patenting is hard and expensive and lengthy. Trademarking can be really easy. And if you are concerned, does an LLC business name, yeah, the LLC business name does cover those things. Like I am, Elizabeth Hughes LLC. And so that, nobody else can be that. So that definitely, and registered in the state of Washington, and already has my federal income, my federal employee identifier or employer identifier number. So it's me. So I don't feel like somebody's going to encroach on me at all on this. What was I going to write? I was going to write something about. Oh, so are you guys familiar with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Association database? So there is I can't remember, it's like uspto.gov. I think this is it. I'll type this out, but I'll get the replay on this, and I'll get the right link, pto.gov. So the U.S. Trademark and Patent and Trademark Office, if it's not Trademark and Patent Office, I can't remember. You can go in and do a search of what you might want to, and you can see if you're even close to infringing on things as far as getting a trademark, if that's something that's concerning to you. But I don't think you need to do that. I think it's more important just to get the basics set up and then start coaching people. Okay. So how did I find my clients? What length are my sessions and my pricing? So let's talk about marketing for a moment. So it's important when you're thinking about marketing to decide very, very clearly who your folks are. And I'm going to give a couple, sort of specific ideas here. And I'll tell you what I've done, but I'll tell you what some other folks have done. So I know a woman coach who coaches female physicians, very specifically overworked, overbusy female physicians who want to have more sort of order in their lives, and does do sort of like lifestyle medicine in there, but it's female physicians. That's actually female mom physicians, right? Like, so super duper targeted. So she finds her clients through friends of friends, so referrals. So she's got a big referral network, and we all do, because we've all seen people through med school and residency and training and work. So she finds people that way, and she works on LinkedIn. Works, fantastic way. And so that's what she does. And she does sort of personal outreach to people about that, to find folks. I know another physician coach who works with what do I want to say? His thing is working with physician leaders. Actually, not just physician leaders, he's like corporate executives. So for him, LinkedIn works as well. So there are a lot of corporate executives who might be, having stress and burnout situations. And so that's a little older age group than the physician moms, the woman who's working with the people who are, juggling the 6-year-olds and getting them to, soccer games, as well as trying to be a parent. My friend Joe, he's working on executives a lot in the healthcare space already, who realize that they're not walking their walk, walking what they want to do. I have another friend who does who does nutrition and advice and weight loss advice, and she found an amazing way of getting into corporations, medium size and large corporations, and running classes for the employees. So that might, and she's got, she every 5 weeks she gets, I can't remember, I think she does a 6-week class, and she goes to different places and runs the 6-week class for a small cohort of employees, who are then given time out of their day to go and do this. And out of this, she sometimes gets a client, but she always gets a group of people. And so she works with, I think, I want to say she's got 3 different local organizations here in Seattle, where she physically travels to them. I mean, not recently because of the pandemic, but she physically travels to the corporations and runs classes for them. And she's got contracts that allow her to do this. And then she gets personal folks in as well. So my folks that are attracted to me and my zone of genius tend to be people who are interested in spirituality, subconscious belief change, yoga. And so I have done seminars at yoga studios. Right? I go on podcasts about personal development and how illness can be a part of the personal development journey. I've done probably about 40 podcasts in the last year. It was very nice being registered to one of the certifications I have has a specific website listing people who are interested in this very specific modality. I find a bunch of people that way. There is nothing like, for me, another way I did it is doing some work for some of my medical colleagues and, giving them a real taste of what I do. I get referrals from people all the time now, all the time. And here's the different thing, because I'm not local, like my friend who wants to coach people in a corporation here in Seattle. I work with people all over the place. I mean, literally, I have clients right now in Vermont and in Canada, and I have one in Montreal, one in Yukon, one in Austin, Texas, one in California. And so I'm all over the place with where people are finding me. And so it's very different. If you're local, you might want to market and run a class at a doctor's office, right? Run a class or introduce it to your own patients if that's something you want to do, if you want to do it for people live and in person. Whereas if you're like me and you want to, the people who want me are scattered all over the place. And so I do things that get my voice out all over the place. That's how I do it. All right. Oh, where I did. So I think this is going back to that. I'll say one more thing about this and then answer the questions. This is going back to that. If you have, being a coach, you almost need to decide what lights you up the most about it. Maybe what lights you up are postmenopausal women. Fabulous. Then you figure out, okay, how do I want to work with them? And this is going to get a little bit to what are my sessions like and what are my charts? How do I want to work with them? Do I want to do a primarily teaching model? where I run a class and we have group sessions and people work on that. And that's one great model. And I did it for a while and it does not work for me. Like, so I don't do that anymore. I did that. I ran 3 different classes and I realized it wasn't getting to what I wanted to do. Right. So I have it, I have all the work, but I also, because I'm not cooked at any given time, I let it go in favor of a model that works better for me. But if that model is what you love and like, that's fantastic. And then you can really, really hone in on speaking to a specific audience. So, and the same thing about the training. Yeah. So all of it. Yeah. So let me back up. So there's some people who want to do primarily a teaching model, some people who want to do like group model that might have less educational content and more practical stuff, more doing and then kind of support group model. Or there's what I do, which is a little of that group support group model, but a lot more one-on-one. And I'll talk about my specific way I work in a second. All right, I'm going to share my subconscious belief changing method right now. I am certified in a form called PSYCH-K. I am also certified in thought field therapy. I do not use thought field therapy much. I think it's good. I like PSYCH-K better. I think it does much better things. And I'd be happy to talk more specifically about what PSYCH-K can do. I am not a PSYCH-K trainer. There are plenty out there, and you can find them, but PSYCH-K is a very direct way of changing subconscious beliefs. I think I'll go off on that tangent in a moment. I'll wait for that. What podcast platform do I use? I do not run my own podcast. I have only been guests. Oh, and this is the other thing I wanted to say. So I get a ton. Your clients are everywhere. Everybody's clients are everywhere. Everybody needs what we're offering. Everybody needs what we're potentially offering. So I do a ton of networking and go out and talk about what it is that I do. And so some of these end up, get a lot of podcast interviews from that. There are tons of people out there podcasting. I get clients from that. I get people say, oh my gosh, my sister really needs you. So networking, and I will tell you, networking as an introvert was really, really uncomfortable for me at first. But I made sort of like the switch, and networking works is a great source of referrals and a great source of publicity. And I go to networking things that aren't doctors. I go to networking things that are just, like business owners. I go to, and there's some places that are work and some places that are owned, but, I go to business owners. I go to people who are, with different interests. So that's kind of a really key thing. So if you were interested in, working with executives, you might find if there are, a networking thing for executives. If you were interested in moms, where are moms hanging out? There's, where are physician moms hanging out? There's actually a Facebook group, Physicians Moms Group. So finding where people are and doing networking there. Does putting content on YouTube or social media help getting clients? Yes. It definitely does. Yeah. And and I'm only semi-active, I'm not brilliant at this, but having the podcast and the speaking, like creating, well, not just the podcast, having my own social media out there helps me. It's actually really helped me to refine what I stand for and what my value and benefit is. And I love doing it because it's partially for other people, but it's a lot for me. And as I get better at it, I get more excited and I get more clients from it. So yes, people do find me as like, oh, I watched your videos and I knew I had to talk with you. Because for me, people are up in the middle of the night, Googling something they don't know how to describe. And they find me because I've got enough of this. I've got podcast interviews out there. I've gotten people like, oh, I was listening and you said this thing that was exactly what I needed to hear. So my marketing strategy is a lot more osmosis and a lot more of just sending stuff out there. And I found that that's what really worked for me. But that was after 4 years of banging my head against the wall and doing conventional marketing and saying like, this isn't working. This isn't working. Okay. All right. So there was a question back here about the length of my sessions and how many sessions am I pricing? Okay. I am only going to talk about me. I'm not going to say that this is right for everybody. So I do not bill by sessions. I have a teaser program of how people can work with me for 2 weeks so they can see my model, but my model's totally and completely different. I only engage people for 6 months minimum, oftentimes a year. That's usually what most people need, is more like a year. Because again, these are the people that I work with. People are coming to me with a decade, 20, 30 years of illness and repeated illnesses over time. And to think that I am going to be able to and what they want is to be totally transformed and to have like just a totally different experience of what it's like to be in their body, so that there aren't the aches, the pains, the whatever it is. And that takes a little while. It's totally doable, but it just takes a little while as their new subconscious operating system is installed. That's what I do for folks, change that subconscious operating system. And so that's why I just work with people for longer periods of time. But I did the single session for a long time, and I wasn't satisfied, and people were like, that was pretty good, but 3 weeks later it's gone. And it's because it wasn't part of the whole transformation. So for me, I have chosen that I will work with people for 6 months minimum. And I do have people who come back for quote unquote touch-ups who say, okay, I've got something new. For them, I might say shorter periods of time. I do not have a standard session length. This is I have this really radical different coaching model. What I found was that when people were coming to me for, Thursdays at 2 p.m. to talk to me for an hour, whether it was live or in person, they would have this sense that all of the transformation was supposed to take place Thursday between 2 and 3. And that some of the other things that were supposed to go on in their life weren't happening, right? And they knew it and I knew it, and we're all human and things fall off. But if people are really, really going to have that change, they need to have it incorporated into their lives around them. I also found people sort of counting like, well, you're charging $400 and this guy's charging $200 and I don't see the difference between you guys. And it's like, it just became this silly thing where people were bargaining to get the cheapest health they could. Guess what? When you bargain to get something cheap, you get something cheap. So I decided to throw that entire model to the wind, and I do something totally, completely different now. So what I have is an open channel of communication with all of my clients so that they can contact me and talk to me whenever something comes up. Now, this does not mean that I have really good boundaries, way better boundaries than I had during residency. I was on call continuously for 8 years while I was in academic medicine. I never, ever, ever turned my beeper off unless I was having a baby or out of town. So there was no boundary there. The residents were calling me all the time, which was fine. So it makes it sound like I have no boundaries, but I really do have way better boundaries and way better balance. But people have an ability to contact me and talk with me almost like it's like a little walkie-talkie program. They can say, and they can say that something's coming up. And then I get to come back and answer and reflect when I have time. So some people might be talking to me 10 times a day and not seeing me in person at all, which could be fantastic if you're a really busy professional and you don't have time to talk with, to make it a session. That's fine, but it doesn't mean you're not being supported. I have some people who want to come and see me once a week, and that's fine. They still have that other channel. In fact, I insist people use that. That's part of the genius of what I do. Some people I will see once every 3 weeks, but we'll see each other for 3 hours and we'll go really deep, or 2 hours. 3 hours can be a little bit long. So that's oh yeah, I'll tell you my channel for client communication in a second. And that coach accountable, that client, that is think about it as an EHR for coaching. It is a way for me to send information. I have a whole library of content. I have a whole library of education, videos that I've made specifically for people, all of those courses that I made that I've now kind of abandoned. People can go as part of this whole sort of complete coaching container that I create. They can use that content, but I don't sell it as an individual course anymore. So that's the coach accountable is what I do for that. The walkie-talkie program I use is called Voxer, and it is free. It has a free version, which is fantastic, which is totally fantastic. And so people, I'm amazed that one of my clients hasn't beeped me already, because I've got clients all over the place, and so 4 a.m. for me is 7 a.m. for them, and they may notice something, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with it. And there's a specific way I use this that brings in some magic. But I don't use. So what was I saying? So because what I do is really intensive, I do not have a large panel of clients. It's nothing even close to, not even close to what I would have had as a physician. I have at any given time between 10 and 15 active clients, and that's it. And there are some group experiential programs that I run once in a while. That's a little bit different than this, but yeah, I can handle about 10 to 15, and that's great. But because people are getting this sort of total package, my pricing's high. I'm not going to lie, my pricing's high, but it is also, as one of my clients just said, the best thing that he had ever did for his health, right? So I charge packages in the sort of, in the realm of about $2,500 a month, but I insist on, a 30-day, a 6-month to 12-month package, and people can pay in advance if they would like. And that's great. And some people pay by the month. So that's how I do it. Let me go back and make sure there's no other questions. What podcast platform? So I don't use a podcast platform. How many clients do I take at max? I answered that. Does putting a contact help me to, how do I get invited to podcasts? I actually went to a very specific program. I'll write that down. I don't know that they're going to be doing it in the same way. The pandemic really screwed every live thing up. But I went to a really fantastic conference called the New Media Summit. It was in San Diego. I went in September of 2019, and I he ran it twice a year, and I had fully intended to go back in March of 2020 and then in September of 2020, and nobody was doing anything in groups. It was a summit for podcasters and people who wanted to be on podcasts. And everybody got to go up and do a pitch, you know, a live pitch to everybody. It was a phenomenal, the best group of people I had ever met at any conference ever. So I got a bunch of podcasts out of that. And then podcasters listen to other podcasters' conference things. I'm like, oh, I want to have you on. I want to ask you questions about how relationships affect health. And I'm like, okay, like that's great. And so that became a thing. So the networking and even the virtual online networking events, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. So from one networking event that I did in February, I got, six different podcast interviews out of it. 6 different podcast interviews out of it from that. So networking, specifically going to networking for people who are looking for speakers, like speakers and authors and coaches, those type of networking events. And they exist out there. You just need to Google like speaker networking. There is a Facebook group called Speakers, Authors, and Coaches, I think. That is helpful. I'm in another group called the Blue Talks, but that's another one. But I would say the speakers, you know what? I'm going to make a note to myself. With this recording, I'll send all of you. I'll send you some speaking networking. I may have to go and look at it. I recently trimmed my social media because it was driving me insane. And I think I dropped a few groups in that, but I'll find it. I'll find it again. Okay. Do I use special cameras or video recording software for my YouTube? No. I would love to at some point, but so right now we're streaming live onto YouTube. It's an unlisted thing. Your faces won't show up. Nobody can find it, but that's how I'm going to send it to you. So I'm streaming live from my Zoom account onto YouTube. And this is how I do my videos. Just me, talking head. I don't have them edited. If I screw up, I screw up. I'm okay. People like that authenticity, actually. So the idea that you have to be somehow perfect and in a white coat and have something, you know, scripted, not true. Not true at all. I'm very much now of the warts and all sort of way of dealing with things. I will occasionally stream from my phone, particularly into Facebook. I have a couple little Facebook groups. I will do that on the phone just because Facebook is optimized for phone. It's how most people use it. And if you stream from your phone in that vertical orientation, a little trick, your face takes up the entire thing and people will actually, their eyes are more drawn to it. And so they will want to watch you more. It's a little trick, but you can post. So my YouTube videos look like this. This is what I do. It's just my camera or I use my phone. Oh, can I send a Facebook invite for the group, what the group I do? I can certainly do that. I can invite you to the group I've got going right now, which is a health group about subconscious beliefs around health. The coaches and speakers group. I'll figure out where it is. Yes, I'll send the coaches and speakers group. I just can't remember where it is. Okay. All right. Have I answered everyone's questions? Wow, it's been an hour. Okay. Any other questions for anyone? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have it. Oh, tax deductions. Yes. Okay. Yes, there are some tax deductions. So you definitely can. I create all the worksheets. Oh, yeah, I'll answer that one. Oh, thank you. Okay, tax deductions, number 1. So there are definitely things that are your business expenses, and your business expenses can be deducted from your business profits. So you can actually, it definitely actually helps my taxes to have it on there believe it or not. I actually, it's a weird thing, but I actually, you know, can deduct things from my business. So I work out of my home. I have a single room that I use as my home office. And so I just get a deduction for my space. I choose not to itemize, to deduct separately utilities or internet or things like that. I don't do that. I just take that blanket space deduction. It would be a little too hard to figure out how much deduction is going for that. But if you had a physically separate building that was a separate electric meter, I'm actually looking at moving and thinking about buying a house that has one of these, then you could deduct all the electricity, let's say, for that space separate. You know, you could deduct all of those. You could deduct the heat, insurance, electricity, things like that. You could deduct phone. There are lots of other business expenses. Oh, I should probably tell you about this. So all of my, the technology that I have a Zoom account. I have a scheduling software. I use, I'll type these out. I have Zoom account. I have a Zoom Pro that allows me to stream to Facebook and host larger meetings. I have Calendly is my scheduling software. I have, let's see, I have Coach Accountable, which is my EHR. I use ActiveCampaign as my email list server. But most of my emails, because I do a lot of personal outreach, I don't use it all one. Is all of this integrated into one platform? No. I have not found anything that works really well as a single platform for coaches. I think there are, so I take that back. So now they're calling it something different. It used to be InfusionSoft, now they're calling it Keep. It's hideously expensive, on the order of something like $400 a month, which is not necessary. My Calendly account is $109 a year. My Zoom account is something on the same order. My Coach Accountable, it ranges about $10 a client who's using it actively. So it's not per month. That can be a little bit expensive, but it's like $100 a month. And my ActiveCampaign is $100 a year for the level of group that I'm using. Actually, I think my Coach Accountable is even cheaper. I think it's more when I've got it up, because it varies depending on how many people are actively using it. I think I've had it as low as like $6 per client per month. That's probably the biggest expense. So you do not need to spend a ton on technology. You can do this on your own. And then, and I have a G Suite. So I use G Suite, Google, and have all of my, I'll tell you about the Calendly in a second. And that's where I, keep my email and my Google Drive and my sheets and things like that. So do I create all the worksheets that I make? Yes, I've created all my worksheets. I've used some let me put it this way. In Coach Accountable, I have a library of things, some of which are from my coaching program that I have a license to give the PDFs out. Other things I have actually taken what's on those PDFs if people want to fill it out online. And I've turned that in. So I create all of my own worksheets. It's kind of fun. I kind of enjoy it. I love it. But you don't have to. You can distribute them through Teachable or Coach Accountable, or what's the other thing that's not Teachable? There's another one. There's one called Experienceify that I had for a while. I liked it, but it wasn't good. So Calendly is my schedule. Calendly is just my scheduling. So if any of you said, hey, I want to talk with you sometime, I would give you my Calendly link and you just come up. So people can schedule coaching. So Coach Accountable has worksheets that a coach can use. Or I'll go back to the Calendly. So Calendly is just my calendar, and it just puts people onto my schedule. And I have there's a free version of Calendly that allows you to have one type of appointment. You can always start with that one type of appointment. And then I have the paid version that allows me to have an infinite number of appointments and also collect money if people were to want to book a session that, book with me that costs money. Again, because I don't do single sessions, that's not usually something that I do, but I do have the little intro program that people can book right away if that's something that they want to do. And I really like Calendly. It's been really helpful. It has the option of giving a form for people to fill out before they see me. Calendly coordinates with my Google Calendar. So it looks at my Google Calendar, as does my Coach Accountable. So people can schedule things in Coach Accountable, and it looks at my Google Calendar. But those things, the Calendly, the Active Campaign, the Coach Accountable, the Zoom, that's what I have. That's my technology. That's it. So Coach Accountable does have worksheets that a coach can use, and they have a really nice 30-day, I think it's a 30-day free trial. I discovered it because I was coached using it, and I loved it. I loved it. And I was like, I love this. I'm going to just use it. So I got the 30 days. It's very, very easy to use. They do have some basic templates in there. You can create your own templates. You can create your own information. If you have a YouTube channel, you can create YouTube videos that are hosted on YouTube. Again, it's part of my Google Suite, so I don't have to worry about it. And then link it into Coach Accountable and make it so that people can watch it within Coach Accountable. It's really cool. Okay. Oh, yeah. So, someone asked, what information do I ask? Here's what I'll do. I will send all of you my Calendly link, and you can actually look at what I have people do for yoga for some, energy medicine for others, emotional unbagging. Yeah, so I have a very specific set of questions that I have people do. One of which is I require people to, or I ask that people watch a video of what I do beforehand. So I will send that, and you can look and see what I ask directly. And these are things that it's changed over time, so you can see. And so let me write that down. Okay. All right. Yes, you watched my video. Thank you. All right, fantastic. So awesome. Wow, it's been 75 minutes almost. Anybody else have anything for me?
Out of the different certifications that you have and the different things that you've been trained in, what do you see sort of like of those that could potentially benefit from one of those certifications? Which one do you see the most impact in terms of in patients' lives? Is it the PSYCH-K training, or?
No, it's you were the person who said the emotional unbagging.
Yes.
Yes, that's the thing. So this is what I want to come back to. This is what I wanted to come back to. So it's very easy when you're starting out to be very modality focused. So for a long time, I was very PSYCH-K focused. Like that's what I was going to do. I was going to offer some PSYCH-K. Then I was like, okay, so maybe there's some yoga things like some prana and some gentle movement that needs to be done. And I was just adding, I was very much focused on one thing that would help. But as I said at the beginning, and I've discovered that my real genius, and this is actually my genius in medicine that I didn't really recognize, is to see people's emotional roadblocks, to really see their just their roadblocks. Like, what is it that's keeping people stuck in a pattern of less than satisfying health, less than satisfying life, because it's all interconnected. And so then once I see that, then because I've got all these different things that I can do, I was like, okay, for you, the way you're doing for that, we're going to do some PSYCH-K, and we're going to do that. And then, but that won't be the whole thing, because maybe you'll need something else that'll come in that will replace, so you've unburdened your baggage, you've dumped your bags, but it's really easy to pick your bags back up again. So what are you going to pick up instead? And so for that, there's another, there's other techniques that I use, and a lot of them are things that I've developed just by working for a while and a ton of reading and integrating a whole bunch of things that comes down to this, what I do thing. So,
and did you mention you were trained in Ayurveda?
So I considered it. My yoga course was very, very heavily philosophical and had some training in Ayurveda, and I really, really resonate with that. And then I'm fortunate enough to live very close to one of the major naturopathic medical schools here in Seattle, Bastyr University, and they were offering an additional certification in Ayurveda. And it turned out, so I signed up, I was accepted. There was another, MD that was going to do it. And there were a bunch of the naturopathic medical students. And then some disaster happened because it was one professor and he just couldn't do it for the year. And so I didn't do it. And actually, I love the philosophy, but I would have, for me, probably gotten into a situation of relying a little too much on that and not finding the thing that makes me light up and helps me change people's lives a little differently. So I have a great deal of respect and a great deal of interest in Ayurveda, but I am not trained formally.
And do you have any thoughts on forming partnerships with sort of some of these providers? So let's say I'm not trained in Ayurveda, but like you said, maybe I firmly believe in it. So as a part of my program, to say that you will have X number of sessions with this provider and X number of sessions with a provider in energy medicine, and sort of and cater that based on that initial consultation of what you think would benefit.
Absolutely. I think that's really actually a great way to do it. I don't want to say exactly partnered with people in exactly that way, but I have an acupuncturist. I have who sends me referrals. I have a naturopath who sends me lots of referrals that I work together with. And I have a really holistically inclined family medicine doctor. All of these people are people I've know well. I've worked with either as their own patient or worked with together in some other collaborative training forum. And when you get to know someone really well, that can work. So it would be super cool if you find someone who really is, maybe you really do need someone who's going to be energy medicine and someone who's an Ayurveda, and you don't have to do it, and you can create a little collaboration. I have my friend who's an acupuncturist is fantastic, and I would love to find a way for us to work together better. So if you do it, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. And there's also no rules. There's no rules. You can do this. You can, and find your way into what works really well for you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if not, I'm going to make sure that this is going into my Google Drive, the chat, so I'll know what to do. Sorry, I want to save this chat with all the before I get out of the meeting. Okay, fantastic. All right, well, thank you all so incredibly much. I'm going to send everyone this info. There was someone on who I don't have an email address for, and I think she's gone now. So let me do this first before I do anything else. I'm Elizabeth at elizabethhughesmd.com. All right, that's me. Take a note of that. If so whoever it is who says iPhone, I want to send you all of this information. So if you didn't get this link directly from me right away, email me and I'll make sure you have the link, because that just goes to me. That's not my service or anything like that. That's just me. Fantastic. I'll save all of this and get it out to you soon. All right. So bye for now. See you all.
Thank you. This was so kind of you. We really, really appreciate your time, your enthusiasm. It's so hard to find mentors willing to even, to take out their own personal time to do this. So it's thank you. A lot of gratitude your way. A lot of gratitude your way.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And if at any point you have any other questions, that I'd be happy to answer them. And if you ever run into someone who has a mindset problem, if you yourself ever said like, what on earth is this? I'd love to, talk with you about that at some point. But yeah, I'm happy to do it. Golly geez, I wish somebody talked to me like this so many years ago.